What's going on with Fact Nation? Hope everybody's doing well today, and thank you all so much for tuning back in as we finally provide the final part of our interview here with Scott Wood, former NC State shooting guard and small forward with NC State basketball. So, but before we jump into it, please make sure, again, if you haven't already, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps support us in the channel, and it's free to do. So, again, it's no cost to you, and it really helps support us, and we would greatly appreciate it. Please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, as well as check out all of our other great NC State content. And make sure to also give us a follow at Tuffy Talk Now on Twitter and Instagram if you haven't already. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get this thing started and jump right back into it. Here we go. So, wanted to kind of ask a little bit here about this team currently. And then, the biggest thing really is the Manny Bates, deciding to come back and return. And because I feel like for this upcoming season, I wouldn't necessarily say, it's a make or break season necessarily for Keatts necessarily, but I just feel like that, it's definitely one that, because for basically the first couple of years, I feel like the first year Keatts came in super hot, obviously beating Duke, beating Carolina, beating Wake Forest, and I mean, just looking great. But then it's just kind of gotten a little bit flat, but he hasn't really done more. He hasn't really done less. Just has stayed there. But I feel like that, especially now that Roy Williams has retired, that the biggest thing is that we need to take advantage now.
Yeah.
While they got Hubert Davis, who's never been a head coach, to kind of say, okay, for a long time we were just kind of chasing the coattails. Well, now, I mean, we could, take off a little bit, and kind of compete there with it. So, I want to kind of get your thoughts, Scott, in terms of, now that you see Duke and, how Krzyzewski's on the way out, and then, Roy's now out with Hubert Davis. So, John Shire over at Duke. So I want to kind of get your thoughts in terms of, do you agree that this is kind of a defining moment for NC State basketball, that, this is the best opportunity that we've had in a long time to, finally compete in this triangle,
Yeah, I do. I also have the understanding that it's still Carolina and it's still Duke, regardless of who's coaching it.
Right.
We could just pick anybody out to go out there and coach it, and I'm sure they'll still be somewhat successful.
Sure.
But I do understand that, if there was a time to get your name in the conversation with one of the best in the triangle, it's going to be now. And, Coach Keatts has all his recruits in, his guys. Obviously, some people transferred out that would have been big pieces this year. But especially as an NC State fan, you expect, he's been here for some time. He's settled in for him to start finding some success, especially this year, in a year that, we didn't go to the tournament last year. I think the year previous during COVID, we probably would have been in, but maybe not. It'd have been close. Yeah. And then I think the year before it was another NIT, correct? So
yes. Yep.
I think, obviously he's probably feeling a little bit of pressure, but at the same time, they just got to go out there and play. They got to play the style that he wants to do, and just win games. And if that happens, he'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and kind of building off too, in terms of, you were saying, your guys, one of the things that, I've been telling a lot of people, these days, especially now with the transfer rules being like they are, where basically you can transfer at any time and then immediately start playing the next year, that high school recruiting really isn't, I feel like the importance of high school recruiting is kind of taken off a little bit, just because now, you can basically, instead of going after a high school recruit, who's more focusing on the NBA or whatever it is, or, or hasn't necessarily played yet in college basketball. Once they get here, it might be a wake up call to them. You never know. Or you could go after a guy who was let's say, a former 4-star recruit from, one of the other schools, and bring them to NC State, and they've already had experience playing college basketball. More likely that they're, a pretty big time recruit. And I feel like that there's a lot more value now in terms of those transfers necessarily than the high school recruits. And so, I wanted to kind of ask you as well. Would you agree on that as well? That I feel like that in terms of, because looking at football, for Doran, he's definitely focused a lot more on the transfers than he has necessarily the new guys. And obviously with Keatts, he's also brought in, a couple of new guys, but also got some recruits as well. So, kind of want to get your thoughts. Do you agree with that in terms of that necessarily the importance or the shift in high school recruiting is there?
Yeah, and I think part of it is unfortunate, just because of how the rules are. I think Coach Keatts has even said it to the media, and I think he's even told me it's just now he almost focuses on more transfers than like why should he worry about these high school kids that haven't played the game, and I have to worry about are they ready to play the game when I know I can go get somebody that has now experience in playing Division I basketball.
Yeah.
It's just tough. It's hard to gauge. I mean, for me, it's just you still got to bring in the right guys, but it's also like a lot of these kids, they just don't have the right mentality and are ready to come in at 18 years old, and they're playing against guys that are 20, 22 that have experienced it, and then they realize that they're not getting the minutes that they want, and they just want to bail. So to me, it's hard just to get that consistency because I just feel like people are afraid of the challenge. That's if I could give to any of those kids, it'd just be my mindset of I'm just going to outwork this guy that is playing over me because most coaches, Coach Keatts, Coach K, Roy Williams, if they see a guy working and you're busting your tail and outworking them, they're probably going to play you. I mean, they're about winning ball games. So I just wish I could see more of that. But again, it's just different because they have the expectation of, I'm going to get 25 minutes. I'm going to play 1 year and I'm going to be one and done. And it's just unrealistic.
Yeah. Well, especially because in the game of basketball where, with football, the average professional career in football is like between 2 to 3 years. But basketball, I mean, you see guys that will play for, if as long as they're good enough, play for, 10, 8, 10 years, whatever it is. I mean, you see a lot of guys in the NBA today that have been there for a long time, like Danny Green. He was a former UNC guy that's been still in the NBA. And so I feel like that, especially with college basketball, it's so important to really put in that mindset of you got to be ready to beat guys out, man. Because I mean, you can't just necessarily hope that you're going to go to the NBA and hope that somebody comes down with an injury or something like that you can get a chance to step in. More than likely, you have to beat that guy out. More than likely.
Yeah, so, and I mean, nobody wants to be a role player anymore. I mean, it's just like I think of like when I played with Torn Dorn, who in the TBT, who I didn't play with, a guy like that for a team, a guy like CJ Williams for a team. I mean, they're the glue guys of a team. Those are the guys you need, but nobody wants to do that dirty work anymore. Nobody. And it's just hard to be a good team when you don't have a guy that wants to do the dirty work.
Yeah. Before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need, offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flatlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out. Macon, you got one more question?
No, I'm just thinking well, then who would you say exemplifies that right now? Who's some of the guys you can think of that people can easily think of in their minds, a good glue guy? You said nobody does. Is there anybody left that does that kind of thing?
I mean, are we talking about at NC State or are we just talking
anywhere?
I mean, I look back at it like a guy that first comes to mind. So when I went to Golden State for training camp, it was Kevin Durant's first year. A guy I think of is, a Andre Iguodala. Andre Iguodala made multiple All-Stars, but he put all of that aside, said, I'm going to defend, I'm going to rebound, I'm going to play hard. The same thing with Sean Livingston when he was there.
Sean Livingston's so good.
But again, it's different because they're a little bit older and they have that mindset. It's hard to get that mindset when these kids coming out just expect to be the guy and can't transition into a role. And like CJ Williams is my perfect example. I played with CJ Williams 4 years. Never once did he really complain about not starting. Godfrey comes in, starts his last 2 years. I never expected him to play in the NBA. I never expected him to make a game winner in the NBA. And now that guy has played NBA minutes and been on multiple NBA teams because of his work ethic and understands I'm going to guard the best player and do the best I can. I'm going to play extremely hard and rebound. And then when they swing the ball to me, I'm going to knock down shots. And it's as simple as that. But everybody just thinks that they're going to be the 25-point-a-game guy, and it just don't work like that.
I'd say Marcus Smart is another good example.
Yeah. I mean, they're out there, especially some of the older guys. It's just you got to adopt the role. And I mean, the really good teams have them. The really good teams have them. Like, I think back to my Sweet 16 year, we had 5 guys in double figures that nobody averaged more than 13 points a game. We didn't care who had the points. We just cared about winning. I mean, you had glue guys like Alex Johnson, Superman Johnson. You had C.J. Williams there. I mean, it's just you got these guys that they just want to win. They don't care if they get 10 points. You know what I mean? It's not like and then on top of it, it's hard to guard. It's like, who are you going to guard that night?
I kind of thought a guy relatively recently that I thought was kind of like that is Leonard Freeman. Like, he was never a blow you away kind of guy, but he just always did kind of what he needed to do, and he knew his role. So it's kind of the NC State guy I can think of.
Yeah. I think Jared Cole can
I thought him
be
too.
That guy, I think. But I think he's different in the fact that he's going to have to score. He's
this
going to
year,
have to do everything. I mean, he's going to have to score the ball. He's going to have to do a lot of things. But I also think he has that motor that kind of gets people going. I said the same thing about Devin Daniels the year that he got hurt. I think he's going to have to be that motor, that hardworking guy, because at the end of the day, it does, people's energy, you feed off them in games. And when you see guys starting to do the hard work and the dirty work, other people, you start to bring them along a little bit throughout a game. And now all of a sudden you got 5 guys on the court that are all playing really hard. So it's just one of those things that you got to have. And I mean, it is a dying breed, but you got to have them to be successful.
I want to ask this question while I'm thinking about it, because we're talking about these players on this team, and we kind of talked about, I think in the previous episode, I think it was the transfer portal kind of thing. Maybe it was earlier at this one. But either way, we have 2 guys I can think of who transferred in, Casey Morsell and Greg Gant. 2 guys who are new for the casual State fans, never heard of them. But for those who are more, intimate with the ins and outs of the team, you look at their previous teams. Casey Morsell was at Virginia. He averaged 4 points a game at Virginia. And Greg Gant was at Providence, and I think he averaged somewhere around 6, 7, 8 points a game. People I've heard, oh my gosh, why are we recruiting those guys? Because how is a 4 point per game at Virginia going to help us out? Can you talk a little bit about the differences that systems play in a guy's offense? Yeah. I can think of like a guy who was at Virginia, Marial Shayok, who was like another 8 points per game kind of guy who transferred to Iowa State, ended up averaging like 15, 16 points per game when he went there. It worked out really well for him, but just curious how systems moving in, you may still be a glue guy here, but your opportunities may be a whole different story.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, and honestly, at the end of the day, the game of basketball to be one of the real standouts is about opportunity. It's about that system. It's about being put in situations to be successful. That's what I talk to everybody. Like, when I'm the first one that be complaining about NC State's offense, I get really tired of watching. I'm the first one. To me, the pick and roll is just stagnant offense. Nobody's really moving. That's just me. But at the same time, you got to put the right guys in the situations to be successful at that. So if we're going to run a lot of pick and roll, we need the Cat Barbers running pick and rolls. We need the Lorenzo Browns running the pick and rolls. Because if you don't, if you put me in the pick and roll, for granted, I'm going to come off of it. But it ain't the best person you want coming off the pick and roll. That's just how it is. So it is. It's about the opportunity. It's about, the system, the right fit. But at the same time, these coaches have to find a way to put, Greg Gant and Casey in situations where they're going to be successful. So, for example, Casey's a really good shooter. To me, if we're running some pick and roll action, I'd want to be setting a flare on the other side, get the ball movement. So now the defense has to pay attention to the 2 guys on the offside, and it opens up some things for the roll for Manny, so not everybody's sitting in the paint. So you just got to use them in situations to where, they'll be good. And then it's the same thing with Greg. To me, he's a very good defensive player, can switch everything. Very similar to Sebron to me, where he can just, be a menace on the offensive end, guard 1 through 4, So it's just different, and every situation, works a little different. Kevin Keatts' system is going to be different from a Roy Williams system. Roy Williams is going to be different than a Bill Self system. It's just all different. And sometimes at the end of the day, and this is where we've talked about the transfer, it makes sense. You thought that it was going to be a little different. It just doesn't fit your system. Sometimes you got to move. And that's just how it is. The one that bothers me is when the kid says, "Oh, I don't fit in here. Let me transfer. I don't fit in here. Let me transfer." At some point, the kid's got to look in the mirror and be like, "I just ain't that good, or I'm not working."
There's a common denominator here.
And that's what I tell everyone. I'm like, you want to change once? I'll let it slide. But the second time, are you sure you're not? Like, I'll get some kids every once in a while that I'll be working out and be like, "Man, I hate this coach." I'm like, okay. And then they go to a different school or AAU, and then they play. My coach just wasn't giving me the minutes. And I'm just like, at some point, you got to look in the mirror and say, maybe I'm not that good.
Yeah. Get a little humble.
I can admit that.
And on that note, we'll end the episode. No, I'm kidding.
One fun question I wanted to ask to kind of finish it out is, so I think it was right before your last season at NC State. There was this awesome season ticket commercial that I still laugh about to this day of you at the printer printing literally just on a piece of paper a 3.
Oh, I remember that. I forgot about that.
Hey, listen. Dave Doran can say that his little Wolfpack thing they came out with, and they had a couple good ones coming out. Don't get me wrong, but that one, the one I had was pretty dang good. That was pretty dang good.
I honestly don't know, but I mean, for those who are listening or watching, if it is on YouTube,
man, I want to find that.
If I can find it, I'll put it in the description. But yeah, I mean, for Mark Godfrey walk up, what's he doing? Scott's making 3s, can't stop making them.
Hey, and it was literally usually for like these things, they take like 30 minutes. I literally was like shooting.
It's on there.
Shooting on the court. They said, I forget who our SID at the time was, say, "Come on, let's go." And Coach Godfrey comes in right behind them and literally he said, "Just act like you're hitting the button." And I literally it took 10 minutes and we were done. That's all.
I just found it on YouTube. Genius. I just looked real quick and it's up there.
Okay, so we'll make sure to put that in the description.
We're definitely going to retweet
check it out. All right, Wolfpack Nation, please make sure, again, if you haven't already, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps support us and the channel. And please like this video if you enjoyed it, and also check all of our other great NC content. And thank you as well to our sponsor, Flightlands Jessup Insurance Group. Make sure to go check them out as well. And also, to make sure to give us a follow at Tuffy Talk Now on Twitter and Instagram if you haven't already. But thank you all so much again for tuning in. As always, go Pack, y'all.